Good day, and welcome to this session, Achieving Zero Trust Maturity with Cato SSE 360. My name is Dimitris Booth, Director of Product Marketing here at Cato Networks, and I'm really happy you've decided to join me in this webinar today. Everyone today is talking about zero trust, and with just cause. Enterprises continue to experience security threats from all vectors, and this doesn't appear to be subsiding anytime soon. Most organizations will confess that their biggest security worries come from the people within the organization. We're talking current employees, former employees, contractors, supply chain partners, and so forth. Anyone with inside information concerning the organization's security practices, their applications, data, computer systems, or anything. All of this points to the human dynamic as a key problem with regards to security because we are our own worst enemies. One of the major outcomes with COVID is today, more so than before, we have employees that are working everywhere. We have applications that are everywhere. And this anywhere, anytime access environment that we're in, it is causing that attack surface to constantly evolve and expand, and it is making it that much more difficult to defend. And then we have our cyber criminals. They're more sophisticated, they're more creative, they are collaborating together, and they're coming after your data. And once they have it, we all know what's going to happen next. They're going to ransom it back to you, or they're going to sell it to the highest bidder. So the net of all this really is that there are risks everywhere, and the inability to adequately defend against them, it really poses a valid question for us of what we're doing wrong and how we can do better. So when it comes to what we can do better to protect our users and our applications, we must further ask ourselves if everything we are doing is enough to keep our environment secure. Now, most security analysts will probably tell you that, yeah, we are doing everything we can. And if you were to look at the day in the life of a security analyst, they will probably start their day off by analyzing logs for security alerts and events. And for every triggered action or blocked event, they're going to spend considerable amount of time during the day trying to chase that down. Now, this is not to say that they're wrong for doing that, because we definitely need to understand if that triggered event is an indication of a wider attack within the environment. But we also should take a step back and say, hey, that rule worked because it blocked the attempt. What about all those other rules that did not work, that did not block any attempts? So what I mean by this is when configuring network products or applications inside of your environment, misconfigurations are going to happen. I mean, it's always possible, specifically when you're configuring multiple products in multiple locations. And these misconfigurations will lead to inconsistency in rule enforcement throughout your entire network. Now, these misconfigurations are going to cause these rules to mistakenly allow illicit activities when ordinarily they should not. So, for example, you may have a rule that will mistakenly allow an unauthorized user into your network environment. And you may also have a rule that mistakenly allow malware to enter your network and to propagate throughout your entire network. And then, of course, you may have a rule that mistakenly allow excessive dwell time, so network discovery and lateral movement for days, weeks, and months on end. All of this points to a couple problems. One is rather obvious, that poorly configured policies are creating a lot of angst within many networks, and if done properly, it would eliminate a considerable amount of the issues that we face in today's networks. Another problem really points to a fundamental challenge that we have in many network architectures today. So many legacy architectures, they are based upon implicit trust. So once a user is inside of the network, they're pretty much free to go wherever they want to go. So in the case of this unauthorized user, this individual is free to roam wherever they want to go. And because there are too many vulnerable entry points into critical systems, it's virtually impossible to stop them from doing whatever it is they want to do. This is just an issue of too much trust. And I jokingly like to say that, having trust issues in this case is not a bad idea. This NIST Zero Trust framework has become the basis for implementing zero trust in many organizations today, and it is actually a framework that Cato mostly aligns to. So most frameworks today are based upon this, and the CISA maturity model, which we're going to discuss a little bit later, it covers many of these points. So in general, this NIST framework is a discussion of two key functions, the data plane and the control plane. So your data plane is the collector of all the data from numerous sources, and these sources can be application data, user device information, user information, anything that can be consumed to help make decisions. The control plane is the actual brains of the model, and this is actually what is responsible for making the decision upon what's considered good or bad, or requiring additional clarification before making adequate enforcement. So together, the control plane and the data plane, they collaborate to determine whether a user or device should be granted access permissions at any point in time to a resource for which they are requesting. Now, critical to this, for this to be viable, effective, and scalable, is the context that informs all of these decisions that are going to be made around access and security. So for the purpose of today's discussion, many of these points are going to help frame the discussion or the argument around the requirements for zero trust maturity. As I mentioned earlier, everyone is talking about zero trust. Last year, Gartner produced a report that highlighted how 60% of organizations will use zero trust as a jump-off point for security by 2025, which is just around the corner. But they also noted in the same report that more than half of these users or half of these organizations will not realize the full benefits of zero trust. Now, there are numerous reasons for this. In a separate report, Gartner noted that many of the organizations that they consulted with initially reported configuring zero trust to grant full application access across the entire environment. Now, as you guess, is ironically mirrored a VPN configuration. And we all know the challenges with VPNs, so you can now see that this is a very flawed strategy. Another reason that organizations may fail to realize the full benefits of zero trust is that they fail to adhere to the core principles of zero trust. And so when we talk about the principles of zero trust, we're talking about things like dynamic policy access. This focuses on the behavioral characteristics of the user and devices when granting access. So a subset of these characteristics could be location, device posture, data analytics, usage pattern, and so forth. Continuous monitoring. Zero trust dictates that the state of the resource, the device, and the user be continually monitored and evaluated. So if at any point during their connection they're deemed to be risky, they will be treated accordingly, whether it is limiting access or completely denying access altogether. Zero trust should eliminate blind trust. So access should only be granted with the minimum amount of access required to ensure productivity. So the least amount of privilege to ensure productivity. And as I mentioned earlier, context is key, and I like to say context is king, because without it, well-informed decisions on the user, the device, the application access, none of this can be made. And so the more context we have, the better decisions that we'll be able to make with regards to security and access. Now, this last one here is not really a zero trust principle, but it's something that we have to take into consideration. We have to consider the users, IT security, the entire business as a whole in any zero trust strategy. Because if in any way, shape, or form, if we inhibit productivity, then that zero trust strategy has completely failed. So when we talk about maturing into zero trust, we have to realize that it is not obvious, it is not a snap of the finger, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight. we will find many organizations will be challenged with their zero trust initiatives because, among other things, they just may not know how or where to begin with their zero trust journey. And this leads us to our first poll question. So, what is your biggest challenge to implementing zero trust? Knowing where or how to begin, determining what resources to prioritize, identifying the right solutions, or finding a time to plan and implement it. So as I noted earlier, many organizations are going to be challenged when pursuing their zero trust initiatives for basic reasons of just not knowing what their next steps are going to be. So for this reason, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, they created the Zero Trust Maturity Model. Now, this model can serve as a guide or a template of sorts for enterprises to help them measure their current and their future state of zero trust. The CISA model is broken into 5 individual pillars, beginning with the identity pillar. This one is core to zero trust. And user identities or user credentials, they must be verified as belonging to the correct individual. And this pillar ensures that these proper credentials are applied only when an action is requested. Now, it must be noted, however, that these user credentials should not grant access permissions in every circumstance. It's going to require continuous validation as well as global awareness to ensure that you have consistency in policy enforcement. The device pillar, this one involves transitioning data access to a risk-based evaluation of every access request regardless of the device. This evaluation and validation includes all network devices, IoT devices, mobile devices, server, BYOD devices, and so forth. Constant monitoring for risky threat behaviors and device posture validation, both of these are very crucial under this particular pillar. The network pillar requires a new dynamic architecture that encompasses your LAN, your WAN, your cloud, and internet. Securing users from threats, this is a huge task, but it's also a very achievable task. This will include identity-based network access with the least amount of privileges assigned. It'll include segmentation, holistic threat protections, and traffic encryption across the entire network. The application workload pillar, it mandates we consider that timely access to critical cloud and enterprise applications is fundamental to zero trust, regardless of their location. Authorized identities and risk-based policies should work in unison to ensure that those requesting access will only gain permission to apps on a needs basis. Requiring advanced security along the entire path will help identify anomalous behavior indicators, and this will also be crucial for this particular pillar. And finally, the data pillar mandates that data protection across all devices, apps, and networks. Access to data must be provided on a least privileged basis, and transmission of this data must be accomplished via encrypted channels. So basically, data communications must be encrypted. Also, this pillar mandates that we have data leak prevention as part of our security protection coverage. Mapping across this entire, or mapping across all these pillars, we will have visibility analytics and automation to help facilitate dynamic policy changes and enforcement, as well as those security automation to accelerate threat response. Now, where Cato SSE 360 comes into play here is that it provides a very nice wrapper around this model by supporting or facilitating various maturity levels within each pillar. So if we look at identity, for example, Cato SSE 360 being a global cloud delivered service, it can ensure global identity awareness that enables consistent user access and policy enforcement no matter where the user is, no matter what device the user is using for their access. So let's quickly take a look at this from an architectural perspective. So here we have our Cato SSE cloud architecture, of which Cato SSE 360 is a core capability inside it. And we have the usual suspects of branch locations, enterprise and cloud data center, remote user, SaaS applications, and so forth. And all of this across a distributed network of POPs riding on our global private backbone. Now, if we examine how Cato SSE 360 supports each one of these pillars, we'll begin with identity. This is the core of Zero Trust, and it forms the basis of every secure action taken within the Cato SSE Cloud and Cato SSE 360. This is because SSE 360 collaborates cross-pillar using user identity, behavior, device attributes to determine the fitness to have access to the network and also to remain on the network. User profiles will exist everywhere, and this will allow consistent access, policy enforcement, as well as user experience. For the devices, the Cato SSE 360 can measure the risk posed by a device or a group of devices before allowing any access at all. Similar to identity, no device will be allowed to roam the network in perpetuity without being reevaluated for fitness to continue. So as its posture profile changes, Cato SSE 360 will adapt to protect critical applications and services from this device. Cato SSE 360 is not just the security, but being part of the Cato SSE cloud architecture, it is also your network with this global private backbone. It provides an in-depth layer of visibility of WAN, cloud, and internet traffic flows that allows advanced security capabilities like firewalls as service, IPS, and next-gen anti-malware to protect all your users and applications from malicious intent. It can enable network and microsegmentation for an extra layer of application access control, as well as also provide full encryption across the global private backbone. Cato SSE 360 provides full application awareness to classify your applications in the relevant context to deepen its security protections. It ensures consistent access policy enforcement regardless of the application location or the method or location of access by the user or their device. And it provides advanced threat protection for all enterprise and cloud applications. And then finally, data. Access to data is always top of mind when designing and deploying Cato SSE 360 for Zero Trust. Users and devices will always be inspected for risk before granting access and will be constantly evaluated for fitness to remain in the network and maintain the connection to the data. Like the application itself, advanced threat protection through Cato SSE 360 will help to eliminate risk. And sensitive data protection is always going to be at the center of SSE 360 for Zero Trust. So if you step back and look at it from a higher level, we now see that Cato SSE 360, it provides that complete protection, that complete 360-degree security coverage while supporting many Zero Trust maturity pillar attributes. Additionally, Cato SSE 360's global presence gives organizations the full visibility of all users, all applications, and all network flows for richer security analytics to automate and adapt the security posture and reduce potential blind spots. And this brings us to our second poll question. So, how prepared is your organization to implement a Zero Trust architecture? Very prepared, somewhat prepared, not very prepared, or not prepared at all? The beauty of Cato SSE 360 is that it takes a risk-based approach to Zero Trust. It helps you identify, assess, control, and continuously evaluate the potential risk posed by users, devices, applications, services, then adapts with minimal effort and minimal impact on the user experience. Now, is this to say that Cato SSE 360 or any SSE solution on the market today will address all your zero trust issues and provide everything that's required? The answer to that question is no. As we know, zero trust is not a single product solution and is not a single vendor solution. Rather, it is a strategy that encompasses multiple technologies. And things like privileged identity management or privileged access management and full disk encryption, all of these fall outside the scope of SSE solutions today. Having said that, though, the Cato SASE cloud architecture with Cato SSE 360 helps you to smooth that path to full zero trust maturity by supporting and facilitating your zero trust initiatives across all pillars. Because at the end of the day, we have to realize that zero trust maturity is not a sprint, rather it is a journey. And the right SSE architecture that effectively maps across the maturity model pillars, it will help make that journey smoother, more secure, and more complete. And the right SSE architecture is a 100% converged, cloud-native, globally distributed SASE cloud architecture with the Cato SSE 360 built on a global private backbone that secures all your users, all your applications, and all your data. And this brings us to our final poll question. Would you like to discuss how Cato can help you with your zero trust projects? Yes, no, or not sure or need more information? So in closing, I would like to leave you with 3 key things to keep in mind that will ensure that you have a smooth path to full zero trust maturity. Continuous validation means that no user or device should perpetually roam your environment. Your security and network architecture should ensure that you have constant reevaluation of those users and devices to determine their fitness and then take appropriate action when any activity or posture changes put your applications or your data at risk. Your architecture should provide complete coverage to ingest as much context as possible. This will enable richer security analytics to automate threat response, adapt the security posture, and reduce potential blind spots. And finally, with in-depth visibility into all network and security traffic flows, this rich context allows you to gain complete 360-degree security protection for all users, all applications, and all data in your zero trust architecture. And with this, I'd like to thank you so very much for your time and attention today. And I'd like to encourage you to reach out to your local Cato representative to have any of your questions around zero trust answered and to see how we can help you along your path to full zero trust maturity. So thank you so very much. Have a great day.